Hey bookworms!
I'm BookMouse.
And I'm BookKitty. And this is
our BookNook. This week, we went Middle Earth.
So journey with us as we talk about our reread of one of our favorite books. So, BookMouse, you suggested that we reread this now. And as I understand it, you've reread it more times than you can count.
Yes. I don't know if you can tell. This is my copy of The Hobbit. It is well-worn, well-loved.
It looks like a Bible.
It does. It even has little gilt edges on the...
I mean, it's kind of the Bible of high fantasy.
It really is. I probably first read this when I was small. I found it in my grandmother's bookshelf. So I have read this book, I can't tell you how many times. And every time the movie comes out, a new movie comes out, I go grab the books to reread them before I watch the movie. The one thing that I have to say is, to me, Tolkien is one of the few I would say is a genius. Creating this world, creating these adventures, and bringing this little bitty hobbit, this quiet little fella, who's just a peaceful being, into the big world of Middle-earth.
The unlikely hero.
He's the unlikely hero. But then you get to see him grow and change and show the world that hobbits are strong little beings. And you start to get your favorite characters. You start to see the different personalities of the dwarves. You start to have concerns about some of the characters. You start to wonder, are they ever going to get to the end? I mean, their journey was over a year. And you're up, you're down, you're...
All around.
All around. I mean, really, ever since I was a child, this story has fascinated me. And to me, Bilbo was always a hero.
Now, do you think that it's a euphemism for life? I almost think that sometimes maybe he was pointing out exactly what's happening even more so now than in his time. That like we all kind of are stuck in our own little worlds and don't see outside of it. But once you do, you start to grow.
That's a possibility. I know that there have been several like after works written about Tolkien. He's taught in colleges. His children have gone through his effects and found his original notes and published them so that people could see where he was coming from. In a little way, I think that is true. One of the big themes that you find in all the Middle-earth books is that strength comes from surprising places. Don't dismiss the little people. Don't dismiss the little things. You don't know. You don't know what they're capable of. And Bilbo shows you slowly what he becomes. In the beginning, even he doesn't believe in himself.
But the funny thing is once one of them starts to criticize his ability and what Gandalf says he's going to do, even though he didn't even know what Gandalf was telling him that he would do, he's just like, no, well, I can do it. I can do it.
I can do it. Because
like, what am I doing? I can do it.
Yeah, he has no clue what he's just committed to. He just knows that he did. And
it's that took coming out.
Yes, the took. I like the little side notes. I have to admit, in the original Hobbit, there's little side notes about the Bagginses. There's offshoots of his family, and it's, the Tooks were always considered a little strange because they had adventures. And good hobbits don't do that.
And the Bagginses were good
hobbits. Yes. And so, it was just...
Every so often, Christians. So sorry, did I say that out loud?
But it was interesting that he'll throw a little side note in about, he'll be talking about something, and when Bilbo loses his waistcoat buttons squeezing through a door, he talks about how he's like, oh, my brass buttons, that they were brass. I mean, they weren't wood or bone. little things about long pipes and smoke rings and little habits about the whole conversation about good morning.
The very beginning of the book. Do you mean... Hold on. I actually do want to quote this. This is hilarious. Bilbo says to Gandalf, "Good morning," and he meant it. I'm going to skip ahead. "What do you mean?" Gandalf replied. "Do you wish me a good morning? Or mean that it is a good morning, whether I want it or not? Or do you feel good this morning? Or that it is a good morning to be on? All of them at once, and a very fine morning for a pipe of tobacco out of doors into the bargain." Bilbo really truly means all of them. He really hopes that it is a good morning for Gandalf. He does accept that it is a good morning for himself. It seems like a good morning. He's feeling good. He really means all of them. He's just so well-wishing for everybody. He even felt sympathy for Gollum. He felt sympathy for this thing that he was pretty sure was going to eat him.
But I think that was the nature of hobbits that the author really put out there. They were good-natured beings, almost close to nature, close to Earth, but a little naive, a little innocent. And you know, Bilbo has to overcome some of that. He's in the big wide world now. And he has to realize that not all people
the things that worked in Hobbiton won't necessarily work in the wilds.
Yes. And, you know, from a perfectly well-behaved hobbit, he became the burglar. And...
well, don't give away the end. Spoilers.
So I just... this truly is one of my favorite stories. I mean, all the different species of people that you meet. Smaug.
Smaug has such a great, like, well-rounded personality for a dragon.
Yes.
Not a lot of stories that involve dragons have that deep of personality. They don't explore the personality of the dragon too much. Mm-mm. The only other one I can think of that does isn't a book. It's a TV show. It's the BBC's Merlin. The dragon in there, who is played by John Hurt, who also plays the War Doctor. Sorry, I'm obsessed with Doctor Who. He has a well-fleshed-out personality and a lot of things that are mysterious about him.
Yes, and he does it on purpose. But I before the movies ever came out, I heard Smaug in my head. I heard this deep, cultured voice. And
slight tinge of sarcasm.
A little bit. and there's a famous line that Smaug always says. It's always quoted. Mm-hmm. "You're very polite for a thief and a liar."
I always forget the second part.
but I get shivered. Oh, see, look at this. I get shivers.
Your husband says it all the time.
He does. He does. When he's trying to catch somebody, he does that.
Her husband is my D&D DM. And so he likes to use that. I think he writes things just to use that.
And he loves to do voices.
He does them well.
He does. And so, all in all, this to me is a true classic.
I'm guessing you'd rate 5 out of 5.
Oh, 2 paws, a tail, 2 ears, anything I can stick up, I'll stick up.
Now, me on the other hand, I read this book. Now, I had seen the Lord of the Rings movies growing up, and right before the movie came out, the major motion picture movie of The Hobbit, the first of the 3, I got this book, and I was like, I need to actually read this. Mm-hmm. And my boyfriend at the time was deployed, and I was doing not much of anything. I was working and hanging out at home. So I was doing a lot of reading and a lot of catching up on things like How I Met Your Mother. And I read it in 2 days around work and whatever the first time. And I absolutely loved it. The whole thing, every bit of it. The songs were a little difficult for me because I was a musician in high school. I know sheet music, and I didn't have a tune to go with.
Right. So you're just
other than that, I loved everything. And I loved the songs. I did. I just didn't quite get the grasp on them. However, the second time reading it.
Uh-oh.
You see where my bookmark is?
Uh-huh. I see. Oh, slower read this time.
Not that it was a slower read. I fell asleep. Partly, I had not actually slept a lot the night before, but a lot of it was the fact that this time I was more aware of the amount of exposition that Tolkien uses. For me, the ultimate, don't do this exposition-wise, is Stephen King. Stephen King, to me, is so dry. I love when his stories are turned into movie or TV, because they're good stories, but reading them is such a chore because it's not a lot of action or dialogue. And I'm big on, like, including dialogue and kind of throwing it in there every now and then to break up the big, large paragraph. Seriously, exposition only plays right in certain circumstances. And for the first read of this, it played perfectly. For a second read, not so much. I found myself skipping paragraphs that I didn't want to skip, skimming things I didn't want to skim, and I found my brain wandering. And I'm like, I know what's going on here. I know where this is going. So my brain was like jumping ahead.
Gotcha.
And I was missing all the description, which really is good for world building, which is why it's good for the first read. Second read, I didn't really enjoy it quite as much. Still love the story. Tolkien was a master of his craft. I will give him that for sure.
I have a question for you. Exposition aside, what do you think of the story being told by a narrator?
I like it. And I'm going to say I like it because it's a third person limited. It's not third person omniscient, or else we would know what's going on with Gandalf when he disappears, for example.
Okay.
But it's a third person limited mostly from Bilbo's point of view. But every now and then it dips into second person, which is really, really difficult for a writer to write in. That's why most times we talk about first to third person. Second person is you mostly find in PowerPoints at work, things like that. But every now and then he jumps into that and he'll be like, you know this.
Oh, there's a few things where he jokes about, the narrator mentions about them eating the cram. He's like, if you don't know what that is, ask your mother. She'll know.
Yeah. Every now and then he dips into that second person. And I can't name another book that does that. I can't. And he does it well. It's not overdone. It's just every now and then he draws you into that story. So I did like that narration, the way it was done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know some people find narrating of a story to be irritating. I kind of like the way that the narrator tried to throw in sly comments or the wouldn't you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it draws you in. It's that second person, that tinge that just...
It's almost like he's gossiping with you a little bit.
Yeah.
You're his friend and he's just telling you a story.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. And if there are ever strong first lines, Tolkien's got it. In a hole in a ground, there lived a hobbit. Okay, that's the first line. It's short. You're like, okay, what's a hobbit? Like, if you haven't read this or haven't heard of Lord of the Rings, what's a hobbit?
And why is he in a hole in the ground?
And why is he in a hole in the ground? And then he goes on further to say it's not nasty or dirty or wet. It's quite homey. And he describes the home. So already he's world building. Already he's giving you a sense of homeliness. He's giving you a sense of comfort and welcome that really permeates the hobbit lifestyle. Yes. So he's telling you what a hobbit is
before he
actually tells you a hobbit has hairy feet and this and that. And before he tells you what a hobbit is. And it's just a really strong start. From the very beginning, it pulls you in.
I don't think I could ever find anything wrong with the book, but then this is one of my childhood lifesavers. Yeah. I truly would turn to this book in moments of, dire need of comfort. And I will share one last thing. I was scared when they announced the movies were coming. I have grown up with this book. I have loved this book. I had built up in my mind, and I had seen the original animated Hobbit. I was scared that they were going to mess it up. And the only thing I can say is frickin' kudos to Jackson, because he did it. He stayed true to the books.
There's a few differences.
There's a few differences, but
he didn't
the heart of the story. No, he did not fuck up. And I will admit this. They took time to do with the characters what Tolkien intended. And they took time to make sure they got the right people for the right roles. And I think that makes a huge difference. I know we've mentioned this before. Book or movie, which was better? This is a case where they were equally great. And I do not feel that the book was diminished. And I don't feel that the movie was diminished. So...
Funny thing is, a lot of people these days read the book and will probably picture the movie, watch the movie going on in their head as they go. Yeah. Of course, people who read it before the movies came out, they have their own imagination, their own production in their head. You know what I was picturing when I read it this time? The 1995 CD-ROM computer Hobbit game. I love that game. I still have it somewhere. It's packed, I think. I've got more games somewhere, but I still have it somewhere. And I love that game so much. There's a couple spots I can still think of that I'm like, that was a really tough spot.
I'm sorry. That's just
but that's what I'm watching happen in this book. I'm like, oh, this is the part where I had to do the thing. And we went to the place and like the pickpocketing the trolls. That's in the game.
That's it.
So all in all, with this reread and this read only, I gotta give it only one paw up myself. So between the two of us, I'm gonna three paws up. And 2 ears and a tail and whatever else she's got. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at something that's a little bit out of our normal genre. It's John Grisham's The Summons. And I have read this, again, years ago. Don't really remember much of it because it isn't really my genre. It's not that the book isn't memorable. It's not memorable to me. Because it's not in my wheelhouse exactly, but I do like to venture out every now and then. I think you're gonna love this book.
This is gonna be new to me. I have never read. Actually, no. I've read other John Grishams. I have never read this one.
I've got another one in the wings for you. We'll do that one next year. So next week we're gonna check out The Summons. As always, don't forget to subscribe below. But what you can do too is ring that bell. You click on that bell, it will send you a notification when we upload, and we are uploading quite a bit more these days. I've got posts on Monday, which is our BookNook book reviews. We've got posts on Wednesday, which are Black Beauty chapters, as of right now. It's our public domain reading space, or Kitty's Corner story time, as I like to call it. Then we have some special ones that may be going up on Tuesdays or Saturdays when we have them. So make sure you hit that notification button so that you don't miss anything, because it's all great. As always, this has been BookMouse and BookKitty. We are now signing off. If you'd like to check out what Kitty's Corner Storytime is all about, the first 6 chapters of Black Beauty are right up here. And the next 3 chapters are going up this Wednesday. And if you want to check out our TBR for November and December, go ahead and click down there.
And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you get notifications every time we post something new.